The proposal brought up today is, be it resolved that the United States Congress decrease NASA's funding by 50%. NASA is an organization that has lived in the hearts and minds of children for decades. NASA helped us win the Cold War, break the sound barrier, launched our satellites into space, leading us to cell phones and navigational systems, and most impressively, putting a man on the moon. But times are different now. The Soviet Union has fallen. We have many aircraft that can break the sound barrier. Private companies launch their own satellites into space, and private organizations are already planning on sending people to the moon for their vacations. It is no longer the 60s, and we should not treat NASA like it is the 60s. With a yearly budget of $4 trillion and a yearly income of only $2.3 trillion, according to Fox News, we need to make changes as a country. As I have said, the country is not the same as it was in NASA's glory days, and the budget must be cut. The yearly cost of NASA's programs, according to NASA, is $18 billion, which may not seem like much in a $4 trillion budget. However, fat must be cut in all areas, and NASA is no exception. According to Business Report, these are some of the costs of NASA's recent failed projects. $172 million for a failed satellite to space. $581 million for a failed telescope. $431 million for a failed satellite that will look at our atmosphere. And many more. All of these failed attempts cost Americans $20 billion in total, according to Pop Science. All of these mistakes must be trimmed from our budget, and all waste must be cut. If a private organization had made this many failed attempts, they'd simply be broke. NASA does not bring any revenue to the U.S. It is only a cost on the American people. It only hurts the American people for all of their failed attempts. Private organizations cannot have these failed attempts, and for every success they make, every single one, they make profit. And that profit goes to taxes and brings more revenue to the U.S. The private sector has always been more efficient than the public sector. For every one public sector job, there's exactly 4.7 private sector jobs. The private sector created 3,986,444 jobs between 2011 and 2012, while the government had to cut 475,705 jobs in the same year, according to economicmodeling.com. The whole country is in a massive debt, but the private sector cannot be in debt. If they are in debt, they'd be broke, they would be bankrupt, and they wouldn't exist. Private companies are always more efficient than the government because they cannot afford to borrow money as wildly as the government does. So why not lend some of NASA's burden onto private companies? Private companies already had huge success launching satellites into space for telecommunications and GPS. Why not allow them to start taking over some of NASA's jobs? SpaceX is one of the most prominent of these companies. SpaceX is a privately owned company that was founded in 2002. SpaceX was the first private company to send spacecraft to the International Space Station. They are also under contract to start building shuttles to bring people to the International Space Station. All of these advancements they have made have been in 10 years. These advancements, though they started later, took NASA until now. They are advancing at a much greater rate than NASA had been. And many private organizations show the same advancement. They are much quicker because they are much more focused. NASA, their projects have been all over the place. One looking at our atmosphere, one going to Mars, one going to the moon. None of them are focused. Private organizations are much more focused. They have one goal and they want to get to it. And because of that, they are much more efficient. The employees of these private companies make more money. It's a simple fact. Private organizations, for the most part, pay more than private jobs, or public jobs. People claim that NASA helps train our scientists, but these private organizations have been doing most of the training lately. They have more technology, they have more funding, they can do more than NASA. So it's so enticing for scientists to go to these private companies. They're doing more interesting stuff, newer things. NASA's been doing the same old thing. And all of these advancements that these companies are making make scientists want to go to them, and they help train our scientists. NASA is no longer the forefront of space and communication. These private organizations is where the future is going to be. So why not encourage scientists to go to these private companies, where every single cent they are paid is profit, where every single cent they are paid goes back to the American people, goes into our taxes, and helps the federal government instead of just draining the federal government's pockets. In conclusion, NASA's budget needs to be cut. As a country, we are in massive debt, and fat must be cut in all areas. NASA is a very wasteful organization, and their spending is not very focused. By cutting their budgets, we can focus them and hopefully encourage more advancement in specific areas. The space race in the 60s, though it was very wasteful, helped the US to make huge advancements, but because we were focused on one goal. We wanted to get to the moon, and that's where all of our funding went, so we made huge advancements. But now, everything's all over the place, and those advancements have stopped. Private organizations have been focused. They've been making advancements for the past 11 years. They are becoming more prominent and more focused and more advanced than NASA. So why not give them some of our budget? Thank you.